Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. This is show number 132, Verona. I'd like to begin by first talking a little bit about a change in my mind that occurred over the past couple of weeks. When last I spoke to you, my audience, after show number 131, I indicated that I was going to do a series of shows on planning a trip to Italy. Well, I began doing that. I made a plan. I began to take the videos, and it really did nothing for me. I wasn't that interested in it. I couldn't get into it. I didn't like the way it was coming out. So I wouldn't say midway through, but I would say that after I had begun, I just kind of stopped and gave up that project. And in fact, for a few days, I felt that maybe I'd come to the end of Alan's Italy. So I just left it alone completely for a few days. And then I began looking through some of the old albums that we had on iPhoto. And I came across a few, and they interested me. So one of them was the topic of the city in northern Italy of Verona. And I'd like to tell you, first of all, how we came to wind up in Verona, and then talk a little bit about what the show will be, what this show is going to be. So in 2007, we decided that we were going to fly into Vienna, Austria, and there were a number of things that we wanted to see there. And then we would take a train, and we'd spend like 3 days there. And then we'd take a train to Salzburg, where there were a number of other things that we wanted to see there. And we'd stay a couple of days, and then we would rent a car and drive through the Alps, through the Brenner Pass, the very famous pass connecting Austria with Italy, winding up in the very northern part of Italy. And we would make a stop off in Bolzano, which is a fantastic town located, nestled in the mountains. And then we would head southeast, winding up in Venice, where we'd spend a few days. We would put the car into one of the two big parking lots in Venice. One of them is at the Piazza Roma, and the other one is located just slightly outside of Venice in a place called Troncheto. So we did that and spent a few days in Venice. And then we knew we wanted to go to Lake Como by way of Bergamo. I'll show you all this on a map in a few minutes. So we decided that between Venice and Bergamo and then Lake Como, we would stop somewhere in the Veneto region. And the big cities in that region are Vicenza, Padua, and Verona. And we decided to go to Verona. I'd heard mostly about Verona of the three places, and it seemed like a good place. It's mentioned in 3 of William Shakespeare's plays. I'll talk about that also a little bit later. And it just seemed like a good stop-off point, so we decided to do that. I write about this in greater detail. Rather than go through every little step of how we wound up in Verona and some of our experiences along the way, I wrote about it in my blog. So if you really want to get into significant details regarding the trip we took there, you'd have to go to alansitaly.blogspot.com, and it's the latest post that I did. So we chose Verona. So Verona, unfortunately, we didn't take that many photos in Verona for a number of reasons. One, we weren't that used to taking pictures with a digital camera. We had just started the year before. So that was one consideration. We were tired from a really long, this was like the 11th day of the trip, so we were a little tired because of that. And, we arrived in the afternoon. We didn't really have that much time. But I've come up with a very interesting presentation on the city of Verona, covering some of the really great things that you should see there as a tourist, a little bit of background as to the history involved in Verona, and I have some really nice photos. I would say 90% of which are our own photos that we actually took, but there's a couple that I took from the internet. I also have a few videos that we took, which are very, very interesting. So you'll be seeing those as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is begin talking about some maps. First, a general map of the region and the route that we took to get from Vienna, which was our first stop, all the way going to the south and the east to Venice, and then to the west to Lake Como, and then to the Malpensa airport to go home. And then I'll do a little concentrated map of the immediate region around Verona, and then a map of Verona itself to point out some of the great tourist things you could see when you go to that city. So that's the presentation. Then I'll show the videos and talk a little bit about the Roman arena. The Roman ruins in Verona are simply unbelievable. Some of the best Roman ruins in all of Italy. And it's really something. So that's what this show is going to be about. And then, of course, I'll come back at the end and we'll wrap it all up. So I hope you enjoy this. So you're now looking at a map of Austria, northern Italy, and you can see a few other countries in there. You can see Liechtenstein, you can see Germany, north of Austria. There's Croatia and Slovenia off to the east of Italy. The airplane in the upper right-hand corner indicates that we flew into the city of Vienna. We spent 3 days there, and then the blue line shows the route taken, not by, I didn't drive that, but the train that took us to Salzburg. And we spent 3 days in Salzburg. We rented a car, drove first to the west to Innsbruck. Didn't get out of the car, though. We didn't stop in Innsbruck. We just, kind of skirted by it, headed south through the Brenner Pass. You see that line, that horizontal line, which is the border between Austria and Italy. And we wound up in Bolzano for a couple of days, and then, down to Venice. And then we began heading to the west, and you could see where Verona is located. So we then went to Verona, stopped off for a day, continued on to Bergamo. But on the way to Bergamo, we actually stopped at Lake Garda. It's very, very hard to see it on this map, but right next to the circle surrounding Verona, right on the line connecting Verona to Bergamo, there's a blue area, which is Lake Garda. And right at the beginning, at the bottom of Lake Garda, is the town of Sirmione, which was a really fantastic town. And we stopped, for a couple of hours there, and then went on to Bergamo, a day in Bergamo, and then a couple of days in Verona, and then back to Malpensa airport for the ride home. Okay, so that's the first map that I wanted to show you. This map shows you the city of Verona with the river Adige. And the reason I'm showing you this is that right in the dead center, you see the name of the hotel that we stayed in, the red dot right there, the Hotel Colomba Diora. And it was a beautiful, very, very beautiful hotel. And this next map that you're looking at is the walk we took from the hotel to a few of the sites that I'll be pointing out along the way. And I won't mention it now. We first stopped at the Roman Arena, which is in the Piazza Bra. And the Piazza Bra, Bra in Italian means wide expanse. And that's where the Roman Arena is located, and a few stores, a really exciting area of Verona. And then we walked through the streets to that point you see there in red at the other end, going towards the right. And then we went to the Casa di Giulietta, which is Juliet's house, supposedly. And then we went to the Torre Lamberti, which is a very high tower where we were able to go up to the top and take some really beautiful pictures. There's a piazza just below it called the Piazza Erbe. The Torre Lamberti is attached to the Palazzo Ragione, so that's another area. And then we did not, it was a rainy day, and we did not go to the Duomo, which was off to the left, and we didn't go to the Roman Theater, which was on the other side of the river that you see right there. So that's where our tour ended. But I have a couple of photos just to show you what we really should have tried very hard to get to see, but you should definitely do that if you went to Verona. Most people hear about Verona by virtue of William Shakespeare. And, he wrote 3 plays which were set in Verona. The most famous, of course, is Romeo and Juliet, and then The Taming of the Shrew, and Two Gentlemen of Verona. So I did a little research on this to find out his relationship to Verona. Like, why did he always choose Verona? Turns out that he chose Verona because it sounded very exotic, very exotic venue for his plays, and that he never actually left England. So he was, according to what I've read, he was never in Italy, and of course he was never in Verona. So he gets the information for Verona from maps that he looked at, maps of the world, and also from people who traveled around and who had been to Italy. And indeed, his lack of knowledge of Italy was present in a number of different situations. One of them that I read was that he referred to the city of Milan in northern Italy as a place where you could get on a boat and, head to the sea, when indeed Milan is landlocked. And there were a few other mistakes as to the locations of various cities in Italy. So, even though my personal knowledge of Verona came from these various references that Shakespeare had made, Shakespeare himself had never been to Verona. However, one of the people who did get to Verona was a fellow by the name of John Hawkwood, also a resident of England, who in 1387 served as a condottiere. A condottiere is a leader of mercenaries. When the city-states had wars between them, sometimes the people from the city-states fought in the battles, but mostly mercenaries fought in the battles, and a condottiere was a leader of mercenaries. So John Hawkwood fought in the very famous battle of Castanero, which was a battle between Verona and Padua. But he was representing Padua, which won that particular battle. Obviously, a very famous battle. Again, one of the constant conflicts between the just continually warring city-states of Italy during the Middle Ages. So John Hawkwood was from England and came to Italy to fight in the battles. Now, when I saw that name, I said, "Wow, John Hawkwood, that name rings a bell." And I realized that the picture that you've been looking at for the past few minutes is a picture that was a fresco that is hanging in the Cathedral of Florence, the Church of Santa Maria della Fiore, and it was painted by Uccello, in the Middle Ages to honor the service that John Hawkwood had made to Italy during the Middle Ages. So, again, the church you're now looking at and the photos you're now looking at are related to the Cathedral of Florence and the giant fresco of John Hawkwood on the wall of the cathedral. You're now looking at a photograph of the Colosseum in Rome, the way it looks now, followed by the way it looked during ancient times. When the Romans took over a city, they tried to make the city look just the way Rome looked. So, they built an arena that looked like the Colosseum. And the next picture you're looking at now is the arena or amphitheater in Verona, which was built in AD 30 outside of the city walls, as amphitheaters were. It seated 30,000 spectators who watched shows and games held on public holidays. These shows and games were called Ludi, L-U-D-I, and they were basically horse races and mock hunts and animal exhibitions. The arena originally was made of pink and white limestone. It was damaged in the year 1117 by an earthquake. And it's in very good shape right now, as you could see, and it's now used for operas and concerts. Some of the groups that have played there: Pink Floyd, Deep Purple, Dire Straits, and The Who, as you'll see in a few minutes when we talk about, in the video. We did 3 videos where we speak about the arena, our experience at the arena, and going inside the actual arena itself. So that's what's coming up now. Okay, this is Verona. This is the Piazza Bra, which is the most famous piazza in the town where the arena is located. You see all the cafes around the periphery. There's lots of people, but I'm sure not as many as will be here in 4 days. Ooh. And there's the Roman arena. Coming around to the Roman arena, the very famous arena.
That's
and the sign that says that the Who is going to be here. Boo-hoo.
When?
Well, we are here in Verona. We are at the Roman arena, the 2,000-year-old, yours truly, arena.
It's still drizzling, so.
It's still drizzling.
Get the camera wet.
This is supposedly one of the best preserved Roman arenas in the world, and you can see how it is. It's completely circular, not like the Colosseum in Rome, which is chopped off part of the way. That stage is going to be the stage where the Who is going to be performing in 4 days. I'm so annoyed I could hardly even enjoy this because that's one of my favorite groups of all time. I would love to have seen Roger Daltrey and
Pete Townsend.
Pete Townsend. I don't know if John, Entwistle's still with the group, but we know that Keith Moon is not. God rest his soul, one of the great drummers of all
Should we
time.
go out?
But yeah, we're going out now to the area of the arena, which is underneath where they, I think they used to sacrifice animals, the usual stuff, gladiators and stuff like that. And I think that, we're going now to the inside of the arena. So, okay, part two, we're inside now.
You can take the umbrella down.
This is the very interesting part of the, in some cases, the most interesting part because it's like inside where the gladiators are kind of like waiting and people walked in and they would walk around and I guess down there there's like exhibits and this is the original floor and the original walls. It's really quite amazing. How beautiful. All those walls. We know that from Roman walls. Just walk a little bit more, I guess, with this. So when I get home, I can look at it for the first time because right now all I could see is the face of Roger Daltrey. I mean, suffering tremendously. I'll tell the folks back home this also. If we had known this, we would have planned the entire trip around it, and we would have definitely bought tickets for $100. Maybe I would have gone to $200 to see one of the greatest rock groups of all time. This is one of the entrances of the original arena, I suppose, and this is another entrance that goes into
Okay, I gotta stop.
Okay, good. And so when we left the arena and the Piazza Bra, we then began to walk around the town. And the photos that you're currently looking at are a few of the photos we took during that stroll around. Some very beautiful streets that we came across. We eventually wound up at the Torre Lamberti, the Lamberti Tower, which is a 200-foot high tower. If I remember correctly, we took an elevator up to the top. And when we got to the top, these are some of the sights that we saw. A beautiful city unfolded before us. The piazza that you're looking at right now, that very, very large expanse, is the Piazza Erbe, which is a really exciting piazza with a lot happening in there. It was really fun when we then descended and spent some time over there. The Torre Lamberti is connected to the Palazzo Ragione, which was built in the very, very late 12th century and served as the seat of the judicial body. When we came down the tower, we then spent time at the Piazza Signori, and that's what you're looking at now. And when we left that area, we then began to walk towards the Casa Giulietta. And you're now looking at that. And this was a very strange experience because when we came into this piazza, you're now looking at it from above, and you can see what it looks like. And then you're looking at a close-up of the actual balcony, supposedly, that Juliet was on with Romeo, calling up to her. We didn't go inside, pretty much because I had read that the odds of this being an actual true story between Romeo and Juliet was kind of far-fetched, and I just felt that the whole thing was a little commercial. So we didn't actually, go into the Casa Giulietta. And in fact, that is pretty much where we ended our tour. Had it not been raining, we probably would have gone a little further, and we would have gone, for example, to the Duomo, and you're now looking at a picture of that with its really beautiful interior. And we would have walked to the river, which you're now looking at. And on the other side of the river, from where we had been, was the Roman theater, which, as I indicated, when the Romans occupied a city, they pretty much created the kind of city that they had left in Rome itself. So there was, as I showed you earlier, the arena and, the amphitheater, that's synonymous for each other. And they also built a theater, because that's another thing that the Romans used to do, is put on theatrical performances. So we would have done that. And then, of course, we wound up back at our hotel. You're now looking at some photos of the hotel exterior and interior. So that was really great. And hopefully we will return to Verona someday. And that was our tour of Verona. We didn't have a lot of photographs, but I think you got a really good idea as to what the city looks like and some of the main tourist areas. It's a very nice city. It's very charming. And, it was raining, so it was a little difficult to get around and to photograph, but I think you got a pretty good idea. At this point, I usually go into talking a little bit about the future show, next show, and future shows in general. And I'm kind of reluctant to do that, although I will say that we're going to focus on some art at some famous galleries around Italy. That's something I really would like to get into more. And we have some very unique things related to Laura's photography that we're also going to take a look at. So I hope you enjoyed this show, and that we see you again real soon. Until then, buonanotte e buona fortuna.